Hola. I want to talk about soulmates for a minute. This is a concept that a lot of people in the spiritual community, and I think broader, more generally, humanity, have this idea of finding like the one, the person that makes us feel whole, that sees us, that we don't need to like speak to communicate. There's so many ideas surrounding. I probably won't post this first video, but especially prevalent in the spiritual community, and these terms that get used like soulmate, and more recently I think soul family, soul tribe, and then twin flame. Sorry, just plugging in here. I think, and then there's some people that are just allergic to it. There's some people that don't talk about it. They don't believe in it. They're like, for whatever reason, whether it's personal or just conceptual, they're just like, that's not my jam. And including a lot of people in the spiritual community, actually. And and of my favorite people, of my favorite like intuitives and tarot people and channelers here on the YouTube, probably like 30, maybe 40% of them are like, nope. we don't talk about that around here. So it's really interesting. It's a really interesting thought and idea. I think for those of us that are in recovery and kind of on the evolutionary journey and the spiritual journey, however that looks for us, I think a lot of us grew up with fairly high amounts of toxicity and dysfunctional in our family units. And as I'm learning more and just encountering more and more people, like both Gen X and millennials, it's funny in pop culture, just like we were the forgotten generation, and that was what we were called, and still are by a lot. A lot of the talk. What are you doing, baby girl? You want to jump on my lap because I'm recording a video, right? I gotcha. I love you, but it's not happening. Okay, it's not happening. Yeah, I love you, girlie. Yeah, Gen X, forgotten generation. There's so many people. I see it on Instagram all the time where they're like the millennials that were raised by boomers, and there's like, you rarely hear mention of Gen X, dude. I mean, I'm sure if you search the hashtag search or whatever, however you do that, it's like that will pop up everywhere. But it's almost like it skipped a generation, like boomers straight to millennials. But yeah, dude, we Gen X, we were the ones raised by boomers primarily, and millennials, like the older Gen X, like we're the parents of millennials, no. Calm. Thank you. No, dude, I just said no. I said no. I know you want to play. She's a little bit wild. I got a blue healer, and go ahead, come up. Don't start biting me though. Come on. Okay. I took her spot when I came in, and she was all snugging on the laundry pile. Double warm. Baby girl, don't leave me, please. Fucking dingo, dude. Blue healer, they have dingo in their lineage, dude. They're really fucking cool dogs. Let's see. 4 minutes in, can I talk about what I was talking about? 4:20. That's my baby's birthday. What was I talking about? I'm sorry. Gen X, Zennials, Boomers, Millennials. I don't know. Sorry, I totally lost that thread. Doggy attack. This whole thing with soulmates and twin flames. Oh yeah, growing up in toxic environments. and generations. That's what I was thinking of. This has been coming up a lot on IG for those of us, for Gen X and millennials that were raised by boomers, because obviously the generations are approximately 20 years. They're not clean cut overlap, but there's a lot of toxicity, and there's even a book called A Generation of Sociopaths that I found out recently, and I've been starting to tinker around with some ideas around this very concept, because it's starting to seem like it's almost a universal theme. It's almost a universal theme amongst our parents, the boomers, largely, that they're seems like they're constitutionally incapable of taking accountability for their actions, by and large. Obviously, it's not universal, dude. When I speak these things, I know I'm speaking in generalizations, and I'm not trying to give absolutes. Toxicity, man. I'm gonna have to edit this out or start another video, because I'm getting into the whole thing again. This whole thing of like generations and toxicity, and oh yeah, childhood trauma. Yeah, because this is part of what I'm dealing with, my PTSD and complex PTSD, because of so many years and decades of this just stacking until I finally snapped a couple of years ago. Not snapped like I wasn't out there running in the streets, but just imploded. And I had already, I don't want to get into it right now. Too much, dude. Our nervous systems can't take that. They can't take that for freaking ever and ever and ever and ever. And some of us that are built like tanks, unfortunately, we can take it for years and sometimes decades longer than a normal human. Because there's been plenty of times where death would have felt merciful. But the ADHD, what's been termed ADHD, is often actually PTSD and CPTSD. It's the visible side of it in yang bodies, male bodies with more yang energy in them, wiring, biology, chemistry. But a lot of these things that they've said that's a boy problem, that's a girl problem. There's really no difference. That's just cultural overlayments. 99% of what we think of, maybe not that much, between 85 and 99% of what we think of as gender is just cultural. It's just socialization. There are biological differences for sure, but spiritually, as beings, mentally, there's not much difference between men and women. Mostly it's socialization. And in the past, for survival purposes, there were reasons for that to happen that way, but it's far outlived its usefulness, in my opinion. Let people do what they fucking want. Let people live in freedom. It's not a difficult concept to grasp. And encourage your kids, celebrate your kids, whatever they are, whoever they are, whatever they want to do. It's your job to create a container for them to be able to step into that, grow into that. For those of us, 846, dude, for those of us with a lot of toxicity and a lot of childhood trauma, and so on and so forth, and to a larger extent, I think it's just kind of a human thing like that. In trauma and recovery, and in trauma and recovery, especially with like childhood abuse, it's often termed like, it's called salvation fantasy, where we think one perfect situation, whether it's a relationship, which often those of us that have gone through this, it is in that format because of partly because of the way our brains work, like the dopamine and the oxytocin and the connection and all the chemistry that our hearts and our guts and the rest of our bodies produce and cycle around. That stuff gets activated via relationships, and so when it doesn't happen in our life and in our body and in our family, our body still knows what it's, genetically we're still programmed to feel those things. And so this concept of a salvation fantasy can be really prevalent in those of us who have gone through a lot of abuse and trauma, unfortunately. But I think in the larger context, it's just a common human fantasy or desire, I guess. Maybe it's not a fantasy because we are wired for connection, but I think a lot of times we have this idea of what our perfect life is going to look like and our perfect partner and all of this stuff, even if we're not like super spiritually oriented or like actively believe in a soulmate, twin flame, whatever you want to call it. Sorry, got possible situation out here. Seeing lights and stuff outside. The neighbor dog is barking, which is not usually a good sign. 1111. Archangel Michael. The wings of Michael. 4747. 1111. That's for somebody. But twin flames, soulmates, I think there's this deep desire in humans that's kind of intrinsic, and it's amplified in people that have been through a lot of trauma and abuse, I think, and neglect, especially. And just people that are on a spiritual path that are doing like big things in the world. It's like we want to be seen and known and have that partnership. And so many of this is how I got off on that tangent. I'm sorry, guys. I do apologize because I know I can get in that mode. A lot of us who have been through some shit in our lives, we are now finding our soul family and our soul tribe for the first time. In our 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, some of us. Like finally finding a place where we feel like we fit and we belong and that people hear us and see us and actually want us around. Instead of like low-grade abuse and toxicity and being discarded and being thrown under the bus, like by our own family, our own siblings, our own parents, which is what many of us fucking went throughout our life. And as humans, we're not wired for that, man. We're just not. It's not. I don't like supposed to be or should. I hate the word should, but that's not the way things ought to be. That's not the way. It's not the way God designed it. I'll say that. That's convenient. Until it's not anymore. As humans, if you look at our biology and if you look at human history and evolution, like dealing with that within a family unit is not supposed to be there. If it was there, if it had been there in the past, humans would have been wiped out. You can't survive. You can't survive in the world without those connections until very, very recently, like the last 150, 200 years, Industrial Revolution. So biologically and in evolutionary terms, 1331, it's still almost impossible to survive. Almost impossible if you grow up with that. From a parent, or from both parents, or from both parents and a bunch of siblings. That's generally been a death sentence for humans. And it's totally unnatural. It's an aberration from humanity. So anyways, circling. It's totally normal and natural to want connection and to want empathy and to want to be seen and held and honored and cherished and just to be in a safe place, to enjoy meals, to have laughter, to have connection with people. That's normal. And I think in terms of what I'm trying to get at here, eventually I might, it's like those of us who have had extra shitty backgrounds, we want those connections extra much more, especially if we're very sensitive, which seems to also be an almost universal thing with those of us who are black sheep and outcasts and are now breaking generational curses and doing this freaking work on Earth to build a whole new society, a whole new planet, whole lives for ourselves and our children and grandchildren and everything else, man. God damn it, it's a lot. I see you guys, man. Fucking salud, motherfuckers. people that are doing the work and still showing up day after day. Anyways, don't beat yourself up, man. If you're in the spiritual community and this is something that you want, whether it's like a soulmate twin flame or just like your soul tribe and friendships and connections, because there's so many people, especially abusers, they'll come in and say, well, you're just selfish for wanting that, and you got to put other people first and have all the codependent nonsense and the BS and everything else. And no, you're completely correct for what you want and what you desire. And if you want it a lot, that doesn't make you a bad person. There's nothing wrong with that either. But relationships, if we go through a lot of abuse, our freaking radar for safe people can get mangled up pretty bad. And so what happens a lot of times is that we'll go through years or decades of attracting unsafe people and getting hurt again, getting hurt worse. And then the cycle again and again and again. And sometimes we end up having kids within that mixture, man. And it's like, good God, it's a lot. But you're not wrong for wanting it. You're not wrong for wanting to connect. And I think this this concept. So for me, what it means is like there's concentric rings. Not every person. Like, not everybody that I refer to as like tribe or family is in that, like, the inner circle, I guess you would call it. There's concentric rings. It's like, to me, anybody that's on the path of evolution and doing the work is soul family on one level. Maybe not with capital letters, but given how few of us there are, even in the entire world, there's not many humans that are doing this work, honestly. There's just not many. It's painful. It's messy. It's the hardest thing you can imagine. And if you have decades of trauma leading up to it, not many people. But you are. You're choosing it. You're walking this path, aren't you? The concentric rings go in and in and in, and I think that 1717. Like, people that I refer to, like cosmic tribe and kind of soul tribe is like everybody that's doing this work around the world. There's a lot. There are a lot of people doing it, but as a proportion of humanity in totality, I don't know. I'd probably peg it somewhere between 3 and 15%, maybe. Just if I had to guesstimate. Because even when you look at places traditionally where you'd think there are like healthy, healed people that are evolving, like churches and organizations that assist people and that are like supposed to be building up society, even within those organizations, it's usually a fraction of people that are actually like doing the work on themselves and in their family and really, really, truly evolving. And as I mentioned in another video, like one of the easiest ways to tell if people are doing the work is accountability. Do they communicate? Do they take responsibility for their actions and for their impact on others? The impact of their actions, not just what they intended to do, but how it actually landed, and whether or not it hurt another person. That's what's important. To me, for me. That's the bare minimum. If you're doing the work, that's my soul tribe. That's the people that I'm like, and I'm here to help much broader than that. But the people that I'm actually going to interact with and have like legit friendships with or any kind of relationship with are at least at that level. And that I think it's a pretty small segment of humanity. But this concept of twin flame, the twin flame thing, dude, is like, I've always been a believer. I'm a Leo, dude. I'm like not a hopeless romantic, a hopeful romantic, an incurable romantic. Let's say that. I live for love, dude. I live for love, and not just romantic love, but all the kinds of love, but especially romance and family and love and all those things that are like just the lifeblood. They are the lifeblood of humanity and of creation at the end of the day. Just as the sun is the rule of the heart, and the light that love creates on this earth is, to me, it is what makes life on earth worth participating in and continuing. And I don't know, some people have different ideas about this. Like, do we have one special person where everything is like completely perfect and you get each other and it's like you're like male and female, or whatever your preference is, like that's you're just like God designed you as two halves, like a key and a lock that you can't miss, and it's just perfect when it happens, and I think some of that, a lot of us grew up on Disney movies, and instead of having like actual relationships and connections and demonstrations. But I think some of it comes from there, I'm sure. To me, the happily ever after is like the beginning of the movie, though. All those movies, like, I love them. I love all the drama and the craziness and all the different things that lead up to the connection and the love and marriage. But I'm like, cool, now what? To me, that would be the beginning. And that's where I feel like a lot of us are at right now, who are, who do believe in love still, whatever you want to call it, who believe in love and connection. And I think so many of us have just gone through the absolute fucking ringer for years and years, especially now, finding out all the shit about narcissism and narcissistic abuse, dude. It's gnarly. But the soul flame, soul friend, twin flame, I think it's worth like separating that out, maybe, to an extent, because I don't understand the mechanics of it, and I only heard that term more recently, and trying to distinguish out what it would mean, what it would look like if you know like the first moment that you see the person, they're like, yeah, this is my person. And the complexity of it is like, well, if that's true, and then what about if we're living in this world where people are all fucked up and damaged and still have, that are still like healing from past trauma and all these things. I didn't even know any of this stuff existed until like a couple of years ago, 2-3 years ago, honestly. Trauma and PTSD and all this stuff that I've like literally been walking my whole life and had no idea, no language for it, no nothing. Or that all this stuff that I thought was just the way it was like, oh no, these are injuries. These are injuries. These can be healed and worked on. So at the end of the day, I think I need to remake this, because I'm just kind of like rambling. I believe in both. I believe in twin flames. I believe in soulmates and twin flames, and I think it's a really similar concept. I believe on another level that we have soulmates and soul friends and soul family that come into our life for a season, and that might be marriage, or like somebody you share kids with, and it's like somebody you're with for 10, 20, 30 years, or it could be a business partnership, somebody that's like that you're so close with on a spiritual level, and you launch things into the world and change the face of society through those things. I think all those connections are possible, and sometimes God, your higher self, the amount of work that you've done through incarnations, sometimes you get to experience all of them together in one incarnation. That's for me, that's what's come up in the past like year and a half, as God is like redirecting my life and putting me back in this place where it's like I know I'm supposed to be doing spiritual and healing work for my primary occupation, not as like a side project later on once I'm, completely wealthy and don't need to worry about money anymore. Because I had that belief for a lot of my life too. It's like, no, that stuff is what you would do for a nonprofit or whatever, healing work and all of this stuff, dude. It's crazy. It's a crazy world. It's crazy evolutionary times that we're in, but at the end of the day, I do believe. I believe at this point in my life, and what I've been feeling in my personal world is that you know, and confirmation by so many synchronicities, man. It's like impossible for me to not believe. But at the end of the day, every single person is sovereign and has to make their own choices. And freedom is a big part of love. It is. It is a really big part of love. Like we can't. Control is not love. Control is the opposite of love. Freedom is total love. And so it's like, it's interesting because yeah, anyways, dude, I'm curious. I don't know how it works in terms of like soul mechanics or anything like that, or if there's such a thing, but it seems like there's like soulmates, and then there's another level that is twin flames, and when you meet that person, when you see them, you know, you pretty much know the first time. I think that is a thing. Maybe not love at first sight, because it's complicated on the human level, you know, and there's a lot of levels to it. It's the human, the mind, the rational, the emotional, the logistics of time and space and distance and families sometimes, and you know, people that might be in healing processes, but it seems like God the magician I don't know. I don't know how it works. I don't know how it works. I don't know if God can take one soul and like kind of tear it in half, so to speak, and put it into two different bodies that eventually meet up again in a way that fits more perfectly than any conceptual key we could imagine on Earth, where it really is like, oh my God, this is me looking at myself through another body. I know there's this concept in yoga and stuff. I mean, that's where the term namaste comes from. Like, I am another, like I honor the divine in you, but it's more like I am another version of God. I see the God in you, and that can, you know, we can get to that place on an agape level. But it seems like there's this possibility on the earth plane and on the romantic level, where it's like you see the person and the connection is so deep, and the psychic, the heart, the freaking soul, the gut, the everything, the connection is so deep that you could be separated from this person by 2,000 miles, 5,000 miles, be on the other side of the planet, and know and understand and feel exactly what's going on with the other person, because like you share a soul, you share an actual literal soul on some level. Or if it just feels like that, because it's so intense, because true soulmates are so rare. I'm feeling it. Anyways, I'm gonna cut this. I'm probably not gonna paste it, because there's other stuff that I wanted to share, and I don't want to get all sidetracked for 40 minutes. But I'll throw it in real quick here too, just in case. This a lot of tarot and astrology readings do talk about soulmates and soulmate partnership and connections, and I think this is an almost universal human longing, human desire, which you know, and maybe it's real, and it can cause a lot of problems in otherwise healthy relationships, because it can make people feel like they're missing out on X, Y, Z through Z, whatever, even when they're in like a really good relationship with somebody, and maybe they're married, maybe they share kids with somebody, but they're, you know, this could be in so many different contexts too. Maybe they're not fulfilled and they really should cut the relationship off, but maybe they should just, maybe if they did their inner work and did some healing, they would understand how wonderful and great the person is that they're with, and just appreciate that, and stay together, and that would create a lot more health and love and stability for their children. You know, I'm all for health and stability, and people living in their truth and their passion and their purpose. And I know that a lot of the institution of marriage and culture and society is destructive towards those ends, but also that people can be really destructive and not realize how important it is to create that for children and for themselves. It's complicated, man. Relationships are fucking complicated. That wasn't even the thing that I was gonna say. Oh yeah, this thing about soulmates has been coming up a lot. Especially it was coming up in like end of November, early December, on a bunch of channels, and it was absolutely wild because right after it came up, all these same places, same people, like everybody I've been talking to is like under fucking attack from the forces of darkness, amped up times 100. And so that to me, that leads credence to the idea that no, it's actually true. These connections, these soul family, soul tribe, soulmate, and twin flame connections are like arriving and ready to arrive on many different levels, and the forces of darkness don't want that. So they've amped up the freaking attacks and the insanity like 100-fold. Because that seems like it happened across everything that I've heard for the past 7-8 weeks now since then is pointing in that direction. And I know enough now, having been through narcissistic abuse and just complete fuckery for so many years. Evil is absolutely real. There are forces of darkness that only want to extinguish the light. It's not just like, I mean, God exists also, and God is absolute. So it's tricky to conceptualize and to talk about these things, but I believe soulmates are real, twin flames are real, and a lot of people, God is like, it's time, this is happening now. And the enemy, whether you call that Satan, the devil, just dark energy or whatever, knew about it, probably, but to me that just gives more weight. 3211 gives more weight to the reality of the situation that we're in, and that these relationships are ready to come online. Because so many different channels I listen to, including ones that like never talk about this stuff, were talking about it at the beginning of December, and like back to back to back. It wasn't just a random thing. And then there were attacks from all fucking directions. Not just in terms of like the romance or the connections or the TF or anything else, but just like it was like a fury of hell unleashed. And many of us have been in that and managing that for the past like 6 or 8 weeks, dude, since then. But I believe it's incoming. Oh, and the flip side of that, I saw a bunch of connections that were made also right around that time, both people connecting with like marriage partners, people that had known each other for a while in one context, realizing like, oh wait, this is my person. Some of them had been working with people, some of them had been friends for a long time, and this also happened like almost back to back. I mean, there was like a whole cluster of these. Some of them people that I know pretty well, some of them just like Facebook friends or like mutual acquaintances, but I saw a whole bunch of these right at the beginning, right after all these messages were coming in early December. So many synchronicities. This stuff's not coincidence at the end of the day. In my own life and the things that I'm seeing, both related to this and everything else, has just been like non-stop coincidences, like amping up over the past 6-8 months. But beware, be on guard, because the forces of darkness they're real, and they're doing whatever they can. They're doing whatever they can to make sure that these connections don't happen, and that these sparks, these fires don't ignite. Because the more light, the more love that is spread, the more genuine love that comes from God, that is spread in the world, that spells doom for darkness, for these creatures they're allergic to it. They're allergic to light, love, truth, God, everything good that we live for. Those of us on the evolutionary path, our whole purpose for being here is this, in its various formats and forms. So I guess that's all I got. I'll probably do another one of these and shorten it up, but I believe. 100. 1000%. And the more they attack, the more I'm like, yep, that's exactly what's going on.